Last night was worth it. That was the message. It flashed across Olivia's screen while she was sitting beside me on our couch. Her thigh pressed against mine, her head resting lightly on my shoulder like nothing in the world was wrong. For a second, I thought I imagined it. Then she moved too fast. Her hands snapped down, the screen locked, her smile frozen. I kept my voice steady and asked who it was. She didn't look at me, just said it was work. At 10:45? Deadlines don't care about time, she replied. I studied her face slowly. She was calm, too calm, wearing that same soft expression she used when convincing a client or me. I asked what was worth it. She laughed lightly like I'd made a bad joke and said I was starting again. Starting what? Suspicion? She gestured vaguely between us. I told her I had just seen the message. She said I'd seen half a sentence, that it was enough for me to spiral. I pressed what was worth it. Ryan had a client dinner last night. It went well. That's what he meant. Let the silence stretch. She picked up the remote and raised the volume of the TV, ending the conversation without saying it outright. That small act hurt more than the message. I called her name and told her to look at me. She exhaled sharply and turned. What did I want from her? The truth. She insisted she'd told me the truth. No, I said quietly. She'd given me a version that sounded safe. Her eyes narrowed, so now she was a liar. I didn't answer. Thought about the past year, the late nights, the sudden gym membership, the new dresses for confidence, the way she guarded her phone like it held state secrets. I asked carefully if there was something I didn't know. She stared at me like I'd insulted her existence and said I didn't know how hard she worked. That wasn't what I asked. She stood and walked to the kitchen. I followed. My heart beat loud in my ears. She poured herself water and said I was tired, stressed about my promotion, projecting. I told her I wasn't projecting. I was reacting to a message, she snapped. To the way she hid her screen, I corrected. She said she didn't hide anything, that turning it away was habit. It wasn't before. She slammed the glass down too hard and demanded to know what I was accusing her of. I forced myself to breathe and asked if there was someone else. Her lips parted for a second before she recovered and called it insane. Was it? Yes. I asked her to swear. Don't do that, she said. Act like she was on trial. If she was innocent, it shouldn't feel like one. Her phone buzzed again on the counter between us. Neither of us looked, but we both knew who it was. I asked if she was going to answer. It was work, she insisted. Then answer. She hesitated, and that hesitation screamed louder than any confession. She grabbed the phone, glanced at the screen, flipped it face down, and said she'd deal with it tomorrow. I asked what he said. Daniel, she warned. What did Ryan say? Her expression hardened. Why was I saying his name like that? 'Cause he kept appearing in my life at night. She called me dramatic. I said I was being aware. She stepped closer, lowered her voice, accused me of letting my insecurity ruin us. There it was again, insecurities. The weapon she used whenever I asked for reassurance. I told her I trusted her. She said I still could. Then let me see your phone. The air changed instantly. She tightened her jaw and said, I didn't get to demand that. I said I was asking. It was the same thing, she shot back. If there was nothing to hide, why protect it? Because she deserved privacy. Privacy doesn't mean secrecy. She stared at me, and for the first time I saw fear flicker in her eyes. Not fear of losing me, but of being exposed. She whispered that I was unbelievable, that she came home exhausted and instead of support, got interrogated. I almost apologized. That was the scary part. Part of me wanted to smooth it over, to be the good boyfriend who trusted blindly. Instead, I asked softly if she had been with him last night. Her no came too fast. I told her to look at me and say it. She lifted her chin, met my eyes, and repeated no. My chest tightened. I wanted to believe her so badly it hurt. Then what was worth it? She took a slow sip of water before repeating, work. The word felt empty. We stood there in silence, two people in the same kitchen, miles apart. Finally, she brushed past me and said she wasn't doing this tonight. I followed her to the bedroom. She changed into pajamas without looking at me, slipped into bed, and turned her back. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling. After a minute, she spoke into the darkness that I was going to regret doubting her. It didn't sound hurt. It sounded like a warning. I called her name, no response. I told her not to lie to me. Silence. Her breathing evened out like she'd fallen asleep, though I knew she hadn't. My eyes drifted to the nightstand. What? Her phone was there, face down between us. I didn't reach for it. Not yet. What? But something inside me shifted. Trust didn't break loudly. It cracked quietly, and I felt the first fracture spread through my chest. I have to stay late tonight. Ryan scheduled an emergency review, Olivia said while adjusting her earrings in the mirror. She didn't look nervous. She looked prepared. I asked what time she'd be back, and she told me not to wait up. That answer settled something dark inside me. I nodded once and told her to drive safe. She leaned over and kissed my cheek, noticing I was quiet. I blamed it on being tired. She said I worried too much. I told her I knew. I watched her leave, the door clicking shut, and stood there for a full minute staring at the empty space she left behind. Then I grabbed my keys. I told myself I was crazy, that I needed proof so I could finally feel ashamed for doubting her. I followed her car from a distance, my hands tight on the steering wheel, whispering for her to please go to the office. She didn't. She passed the exit for her building, and my stomach dropped. I tried to rationalize it, maybe she was picking up food, but when she turned into the parking lot of the Grand Crest Hotel, something inside my chest went quiet. Not loud or dramatic, just still. I parked across the street and watched, telling myself it could be a company event. Her car stopped near the entrance. She stepped out wearing the blue dress I once told her made her look unforgettable, not something meant for a late meeting. She checked her reflection in her phone before walking inside. I gripped my phone tightly, my breathing shallow, warning myself not to jump to conclusions. 5 minutes later, I saw his car. Ryan Brooks. I recognized the license plate from the office parking lot. He stepped out confident and casual, with no rush and no guilt, and walked straight inside without hesitation. I laughed softly in disbelief. Of course, I should have left, spared myself what came next. But instead, I got out of my car and crossed the street, my legs heavy and disconnected. Inside the hotel lobby, everything looked painfully. Normal couples checking in, a receptionist smiling, soft music playing. Nothing looked like betrayal. I stood near a pillar pretending to scroll through my phone while my heart pounded so hard I thought someone might hear it. Then I saw them near the elevators. Olivia stood close to him, too close. Ryan leaned in and said something that made her laugh. Not the polite laugh she used at work dinners, but the real one she used to give me. My throat tightened as I watched him place his hand on the small of her back, familiar and comfortable. She didn't move away. She leaned closer. I lifted my phone slowly and started recording, my hands shaking, even though my face felt numb. There was no innocent explanation left. The elevator doors opened, and they stepped inside together. Before the doors closed, he brushed his fingers along her cheek, and she didn't stop him. The door slid shut, and just like that, it was done. I stood there staring at my reflection in the metal doors, whispering that I had finally seen it. I didn't chase them, didn't knock on doors or scream in the hallway. I walked back to my car slowly and sat in silence, replaying the video, her smile, his touch, the way she leaned into him. It wasn't confusion or hesitation, it was choice. My chest hurt, but my mind felt clear for the first time in weeks. I waited in the parking lot, not sure why, maybe needing to see them leave together. An hour passed, then another, and at some point my anger stopped burning and turned cold. When they finally came down, they weren't rushed or ashamed. Ryan kissed her, not friendly and not subtle, his hand holding her waist like she belonged there. She kissed him back without hesitation. I recorded that too. My heart didn't race anymore. It just closed. I left before they could see me. By the time I reached our apartment, I had made one decision. I would not confront her tonight. When she walked in an hour later, she looked tired, or maybe she just performed tired well. She asked if I was still awake. I said yes. She asked how my night was. Quiet. She said hers was exhausting. I asked if it had been a long meeting. So long? Productive? Very? The word hit me like a blade. She kissed me softly and said she was going to shower, telling me not to overthink. I almost laughed. While the shower ran, I sat on the edge of the bed, replaying the video again. Pausing on the frame where she leaned into his kiss and zooming in on her face. She looked happy, not forced or manipulated happy. When she came out wrapped in a towel, she asked if I was okay and said I looked pale. I blamed it on being tired. She walked closer, touched my face, and told me she loved me. I searched her eyes and found no crack in her performance. I told her I loved her too, and in that moment something inside me died, not loudly or dramatically, just a quiet collapse of everything I believed. She lay down beside me and turned off the light, asking softly in the dark if I trusted her. I stared at the ceiling and said yes, but I wasn't speaking to her. I was speaking to myself. Trust was no longer a feeling. It was evidence, and I had it. I didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't touch her. I just lay there listening to her breathing, knowing the woman beside me had chosen someone else and come home to me like nothing had happened. That hurt more than the kiss. As she drifted into sleep, I made another decision. I would not beg. I would not scream. I would not expose her tonight. I would wait, and when I moved, it would be quiet. Because now I knew, and knowing changes everything. The morning after I watched Olivia kiss Ryan, I made her breakfast. She walked into the kitchen surprised and asked, "Since when I woke up early?" I told her it was since I decided to try harder and slid a plate toward her. She smiled, relaxed, and called it sweet. I studied her face while she ate, no guilt, no hesitation, just comfort. I asked about her plans for the day. She said she had meetings all afternoon and that Ryan had been intense lately. I told her I was sure he had. She didn't catch the tone and asked if I was okay. I said I was better than yesterday. She reached for my hand and reminded me we were fine. I squeezed her fingers gently and agreed. That was the first lie I told. Later that day, I met Marcus at our usual bar. He stared at me and asked if I had followed her. I said yes. He asked if she'd been working. I told him she hadn't. He leaned forward and told me to say I'd confronted her. I said no. His jaw tightened, asking what I was doing. I told him I was waiting for the right moment. He asked if I'd seen them. I said yes. He couldn't understand how I could see that and still make her breakfast. I told him I needed her comfortable so she wouldn't see what was coming. He said this wasn't me. I told him it was now. He said I still loved her. I said that was why it hurt. He told me to end it. Not yet, I answered. He lowered his voice and said I was scaring him. I told him that meant I was finally thinking. When he asked the plan, I told him I was separating our joint accounts slowly. He said she'd notice. I said not if I did it carefully. That night, Olivia came home excited, saying I'd never guess what happened. Ryan had hinted at a promotion, senior management. More money. I said that was great. She glowed and said she knew working late would pay off. I nodded and told her she deserved it. She studied me and said I was being really supportive lately. I told her I was trying to be the man she needed. She smiled and said that was why she wanted forever with me. The word almost made me laugh. Then she said she'd been looking at engagement rings online. I asked already. She teased that I had said soon. I forced myself to meet her eyes and repeated soon. She leaned into me and described something simple and elegant, nothing flashy. I told her I'd remember that. While she talked about diamond cuts and venues, I opened my banking app under the table and started making small, quiet transfers. I asked if I was even listening. I told her I was and repeated her words back. She kissed my cheek and said I did listen, if she only knew. 2 days later, I met with a lawyer during lunch. He asked if I was married. Not yet. Joint assets? Yes. Proof of infidelity. I slid my phone across the desk. He watched the video silently and handed it back with a different expression. He said I was handling it calmly. I told him I didn't feel calm. He asked if I planned to confront her. Eventually, he advised me to protect myself first. I told him I intended to. That evening, Sophia texted asking if we could talk. We met at a quiet coffee shop. She looked uncomfortable and asked if I knew. I said yes. She admitted she had tried to tell Olivia to stop. I asked how long. 3 months. The number burned. I asked if Olivia had ever felt guilty. Sophia hesitated and said Olivia called me safe. I repeated the word. She said Ryan was exciting. I leaned back, letting the contrast settle. Safe and exciting. I thanked her calmly. She asked why I wasn't angrier. I said I was, but anger makes mistakes. She asked what I was going to do. I told her nothing reckless. She said that sounded worse. I said it wasn't revenge. It was balance. That night, Olivia wrapped her arms around me in bed and whispered that I had been amazing lately, that it made her feel secure. Secure. I told her I was glad. She said sometimes she felt like she didn't deserve me. I almost asked why, but instead I told her not to lose me. She laughed softly and promised she wouldn't. I stared into the darkness thinking she already had. The next week, I moved more money, changed passwords, copied evidence to a private drive. Every action felt precise. Marcus called one evening and asked if I was still pretending. Yes. Did she suspect? Not at all. How did that feel? Powerful. He went quiet and said he never thought he'd hear me say that. I told him I never thought I'd need to. That weekend, Olivia dragged me to a jewelry store, insisting we were just looking. The salesman asked if we were shopping for something special. Soon, she answered before I could. I examined a ring under the bright lights. She whispered that it was beautiful and asked if I could imagine it. I imagined something else's room full of people, a truth exposed, her smile disappearing. I told her it fit her as I slid the sample onto her finger. She admired it in the mirror and said one day. I agreed quietly. On the drive home, she rested her head on my shoulder and said she was so lucky. I kept my eyes on the road and thought, no, you were. By the time we pulled into the apartment parking lot, I understood something clearly. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was preparing. She believed she had fooled me, believed I was still blind, but every smile I gave her was measured. Every promise temporary, every quiet moment strategy. I wasn't the victim in this story anymore. I was building the stage, and when the curtain finally rose, she wouldn't see it coming. Why are you smiling like that? Olivia asked, while adjusting her dress in the mirror. I told her it was because tonight mattered. She turned toward me, glowing in the soft bedroom light, and said I was making her nervous. I asked if it was the good kind. She said it was the best kind. I walked closer, fixed the strap on her shoulder, and asked if she trusted me. With her whole life, she said. I held her gaze a second longer than usual and told her to remember that. The restaurant hall was already full when we arrived. Soft music, warm lights, both our families seated at round tables. Marcus stood near the bar watching me carefully. Sophia avoided eye contact and Ryan sat near the front, pretending this was just another company dinner. Olivia squeezed my hand and said I had really invited everyone. I told her I wanted it to be special. Her father, Thomas Bennett, approached us and joked that whatever I was planning better be worth the suspense. I assured him it would be. Olivia teased him for intimidating me, and he chuckled that if I was going to marry her, I could handle pressure. The words "marry you" landed without emotion. We took our seats, and Olivia kept glancing at me with shining anticipation. She whispered that I was shaking. I blamed adrenaline. Hashtag, she said. She couldn't believe this was happening. I told her it was. Dinner passed in polite conversation. Her mother complimented the venue. My sister Emily watched me like she sensed something deeper, and Marcus avoided smiling. Finally, I stood and tapped my glass. The room quieted instantly. Olivia gasped softly. I reached into my pocket and instead of a ring, pulled out my phone. She laughed nervously and asked what I was doing. I told her to give me a second and walked to the small stage where a projector screen hung behind me. After connecting my phone, I thanked everyone for coming and said tonight was important. Olivia pressed her hands to her mouth, already emotional. I told them I had invited the people who mattered most to us because honesty deserved witnesses. Her smile faltered. I looked directly at her and reminded her that she once said trust was everything. She nodded slowly. I said I agreed, but before making any promises, everyone deserved the truth. Ryan shifted in his seat. I turned to the screen and pressed play. The first video appeared grainy, but clear. Olivia standing near the hotel elevator, Ryan's hand resting on her back. A murmur rippled through the room. Olivia froze and asked what this was. I didn't answer. The elevator doors closed on the screen, and the second clip played the kiss, unmistakable and undeniable. Gasps filled the hall. Thomas Bennett stood abruptly, demanding to know what nonsense this was. I said calmly that it was evidence. Olivia's face drained of color, and she accused me of following her. I said yes. She said I had invaded her privacy, said I had protected my sanity. Ryan stood and declared this inappropriate, that I was embarrassing her over nothing. I quietly repeated nothing. Then I projected the screenshots messages enlarged across the screen. Last night was worth it. Can't stop thinking about your hands. Miss you already. Silence swallowed the room. Olivia shook her head and claimed I was twisting things. I asked if I was. She insisted it wasn't serious. Ryan snapped that this was between adults and families. Shouldn't be dragged into it. I looked at him and reminded him he was my boss. He asked what that had to do with anything. I answered that he had slept with my girlfriend. He told me to watch my accusations. I pressed play on the final clip, him kissing her outside the hotel. There were no words left to twist. Thomas turned slowly to his daughter and asked if it was true. She opened her mouth, but no sound came. Her mother began to cry. Sophia covered her face. Marcus moved closer to me without speaking. Olivia finally said it was a mistake, asked if 3 months counted as a mistake. Her eyes snapped to mine and asked if I had known. I said yes. She demanded to know why I hadn't talked to her. I told her she was already talking to him. Ryan stepped forward, saying, "People make mistakes." I replied that mistakes are accidents. This was choice. Thomas looked at Ryan with open disgust and declared he would never contact his daughter again. Ryan scoffed that it wasn't his decision. Thomas answered coldly that it was now. Olivia grabbed my arm and begged me not to do this like this. I asked how I should have done it. In private, she said. I reminded her she had cheated in private. She claimed she was confused. I told her she had been comfortable. Tears streamed down her face as she insisted she still loved me. The room felt suffocating, but my voice stayed even as I said, love doesn't hide in hotel elevators. She collapsed into a chair, shaking. Emily stepped beside me and whispered she was proud of me. I nodded once. I faced the room and said I hadn't gathered them for drama, but because I refused to build a future on lies. Olivia looked up at me desperately and pleaded for me not to do this. I told her it was already done. Ryan grabbed his jacket and called it childish. I answered that it was clarity. Thomas apologized to me, but I told him he owed me nothing. Olivia stood suddenly and said we could fix this. I looked at her one last time and reminded her she had called me insecure. Her silence confirmed everything. I unplugged my phone and stepped off the stage. Marcus stopped me near the exit and asked if I was okay. I said yes. He said I hadn't even yelled. I told him I didn't need to. Behind me, I heard Olivia sobbing, her father speaking sharply, chairs scraping across the floor. I didn't turn around. As I reached the door, she called my name. I paused, but didn't face her. She cried that she was sorry. The apology sounded small in a room filled with truth. I walked out into the cool night air feeling no anger, no shaking, just quiet certainty. Inside that hall, her image had collapsed in front of everyone she tried to impress. Outside, I felt something different. Not revenge, but relief. The power had shifted, and for the first time since I saw that message on her phone, I could breathe. The morning after the dinner, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Marcus called first and told me I had broken the internet. I said I hadn't posted anything. He replied that I didn't have to because someone else had recorded it. I told him that was good. He said I sounded calm. I told him I was. After a pause, he mentioned that Ryan hadn't shown up to work and that internal audit had walked into his office. I asked if it was company policy catching up to him. Marcus said it was bigger than that relationship with a subordinate. It's possible misuse of client funds and that it was getting messy fast. I leaned back in my chair and said I hadn't reported him. Marcus told me I didn't need to. Once the video spread, HR had no choice. I felt a strange weight lift from my chest. Not satisfaction, just balance. Later that afternoon, Olivia's name lit up my phone. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice was raw and shaking as she demanded to know how I could do that to her. I told her I had shown the truth. She accused me of humiliating her. I reminded her she had lied to me. She said that didn't mean I had to destroy her life. I answered that I hadn't destroyed it, only exposed it. She asked if I thought this was justice. I said no. It was consequence. She sobbed and told me she had lost her job because the company said her behavior violated ethics. I told her it did. She accused me of enjoying it. I said I wasn't. She begged me to fix it. I told her I couldn't fix what she chose. Silence followed, then anger. She said Ryan was under investigation for misusing company cards and that corporate was getting involved. I replied that it wasn't my department. She insisted I had started this. I corrected how I had exposed it. She inhaled sharply and said I could have forgiven her. I admitted I could have. She asked why I didn't. I told her it was because she hadn't regretted it. She had hidden it. She said she had made a mistake. Told her she had made a pattern. That ended the argument more effectively than shouting ever could. That night, an unknown number called. A firm voice introduced himself as Detective Aaron Cole and said he wanted to ask a few questions about Ryan Brooks regarding financial misconduct and inappropriate conduct with an employee. My pulse slowed instead of rising. I told him I had evidence of the second. He said he was aware, and that was why he was calling. I clarified I hadn't filed a complaint. He said I didn't need to. They just needed confirmation and possibly the video. Agreed to cooperate. When I hung up, I sat alone in my apartment. The same couch, the same walls, but the silence felt different. My mother called later and said she had seen the video. She asked if I was okay. I said I thought so. She noted that I hadn't yelled. I told her I didn't have to. She said I sounded like my father when I got quiet like that, which meant I was thinking. I admitted I kept wondering if I had gone too far. She said I had only shown what was already there, hadn't created it. I told her Olivia claimed I had ruined her life. My mother calmly asked if I had forced her into that hotel or sent those messages. I said no. She asked what exactly I had ruined. Her logic grounded me. After we hung up, Emily texted asking to meet for coffee. She hugged me tightly and told me I had done the right thing, said I had exposed Olivia in front of everyone. Emily replied that I had given her the same public honesty she denied me. I admitted I still loved her and that it hurt. Emily said it should hurt. If it didn't, I'd be empty. I confessed that part of me felt guilty for not feeling as angry as I expected. She said that wasn't guilt, it was peace. The word felt unfamiliar, but accurate. When I returned home, Olivia had sent another message asking me to talk. I called her. Her voice sounded smaller. She said Ryan was blaming her and claiming she pursued him. I asked if she had. She hesitated and said it wasn't like that. I told her it was something. She said they were freezing his accounts and investigating fraud. I told her that was serious, but it was his choice. She started crying again, saying everything was falling apart, that she had lost her friends. I told her it had been broken long before and that she had lost their trust. She asked if I cared anymore. I paused before answering that I cared about myself now. The silence that followed felt final. She called me cold. I replied quietly that I was clear. After ending the call, I realized I wasn't planning anything anymore. I wasn't strategizing or pushing events forward. Everything was unfolding without my help. I'm being questioned, Olivia facing consequences, the company cleaning its mess. I was simply watching. For months, I had lived in suspicion and doubt. Now, I lived in certainty. That night I lay down without replaying videos, without imagining hotel elevators, without questioning my worth. For the first time in months, I slept without anger in my chest. Karma wasn't loud, and it didn't need my help. It was already working, and I didn't have to lift a finger. Olivia called me 3 days after Detective Cole contacted me. The first thing she said was that he was denying everything. I asked if she meant Ryan, even though I already knew. She said yes, and explained that he had told HR she pursued him, that she had misread his friendliness and exaggerated things. I stayed quiet, letting her words hang. She insisted that wasn't true and reminded me that I had seen the video. I told her I had. She said he was claiming she manipulated him and that he had even blocked her number. Of course he had. She whispered that she thought he cared. I told her that was the problem, she thought. She accused me of enjoying this. But I said I wasn't enjoying anything, she said. I sounded calm. I explained it was because I had already grieved. Later that afternoon, Sophia asked to meet again. We sat in the same cafe as before, and she told me Olivia was spiraling. I said I knew. Sophia explained that Olivia hadn't expected Ryan to turn on her. I asked why she would expect loyalty from someone who helped her cheat. Sophia flinched and said, Olivia thought she was different from other women. I asked if she was. Sophia hesitated and admitted Olivia used to say, I was safe, stable, and reliable. I asked about Ryan. She swallowed and said he was exciting. The words settled between us. Sophia added that Olivia once described me as the man you marry, but Ryan, is the man who makes you feel alive. I nodded and said alive isn't loyal. Sophia said she had tried to tell her that, but Olivia hadn't listened. She told me Olivia wanted to meet. I said I knew and that I would go to end it properly. Sophia studied me and asked if I still loved her. I thought about it carefully before answering no. That evening, I met Olivia at a quiet park near our old apartment. Looked smaller, somehow not physically, but diminished. She thanked me for coming. I told her I wouldn't stay long. She immediately launched into updates. Ryan was under formal investigation, his access to company accounts frozen. I said I had heard. She repeated that he told them she chased him. I asked calmly if she had. Tears filled her eyes as she said she had been lonely. I reminded her she hadn't been alone. She said I had been distant, said I had been working. She claimed I had stopped fighting for her. I told her I had trusted her. She wiped her cheeks and said it wasn't supposed to go that far. I told her it did. She called it a mistake. I gently corrected her. It was a choice. She looked at me like I had slapped her and asked if I really believed she wanted to hurt me. I said yes. She called that cruel. I reminded her that lying was cruel too. She stepped closer and insisted she loved me. I told her she loved comfort. She said that wasn't fair. I brought up the word safe. Her eyes widened, demanding to know who told me. I said it didn't matter. She tried to reframe it as secure and stable. I added that Ryan was exciting. She looked down because that word said everything. She claimed she was confused. I told her she was bored. She denied it. But when I asked why she would risk everything, she had no answer. Finally, she admitted she thought she could have both safe and exciting. I said she had lost both. Her shoulders trembled as she said she never thought Ryan would throw her under the bus. I replied that she never thought I would walk away. Desperation filled her eyes as she said she thought I would fight for us. I told her I had fought quietly when I asked her for the truth. She covered her face and said she had been scared of losing everything. I asked what she had now. She said she had lost everything anyway. I watched her without anger, only clarity, and told her she hadn't lost everything, just the version of me who protected her. She begged me not to say it like that and insisted she could fix this, that we could start over. I said no. She grabbed my hand and claimed I still cared. I gently pulled away and told her I cared about what I learned, that love without respect isn't love. Her face crumpled as she whispered she never stopped loving me. I stopped loving her the night I saw her kiss him. Her eyes widened and she asked if that was the moment. I said yes. She accused me of never giving her a chance. I reminded her she had months. Silence settled between us. She said she never thought I'd be this strong. I admitted I hadn't either. She searched my face for hesitation and found none. She asked if this was really it, no screaming, no blaming. I told her I had already done that in my head and that now I was done. Tears fell quietly as she realized I was really walking away. She asked if I hated her. I said no. She said that hurt more. I told her I knew. In that moment, she understood that what she had truly lost wasn't money, reputation, or Ryan. It was me. She whispered that she thought I would always be there. I told her that was her biggest mistake. Then I turned and walked away. She called my name, but I didn't stop. For the first time since this began, nothing pulled me back. Not anger, not love, just certainty. Her collapse wasn't dramatic. It was realization, and there was no undoing it. Rain pounded against my windows when the knock came sharp, uneven, desperate. I knew it was Olivia before I even looked. When I opened the door, she stood there soaked, hair clinging to her face, eyes red and swollen from crying. She quickly asked me not to close it. I told her I wasn't going to slam it. She stepped inside without waiting for permission, saying she didn't know where else to go. I reminded her she had her parents. She said they wouldn't look at her the same. I told her that was consequence. She flinched and asked why I talked like that now, like she was already a lesson. I closed the door behind her as thunder rolled outside and asked what she wanted. She walked slowly into the living room and said she wanted us. I told her there was no us. She insisted there could be. I stayed standing and asked how. She said she would quit her job, move cities, block everyone, go to therapy, change everything. I asked what exactly she would change. She said everything again. I studied her face mascara smudged, hands shaking, and admitted I had never seen her like this. She said it was because she had never been this scared. I asked if she was scared of losing me or of being alone. She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. She stepped closer and said she had made the worst mistake of her life. I told her she had made a choice. She begged me to stop saying that, but I said it mattered. She claimed she was weak. I said she was selfish. Her voice broke as she admitted she thought I would never leave. I told her I almost didn't. She looked up sharply and told me not to leave now. Instead of answering, I walked to the shelf near the window and picked up the small velvet box I had kept there for weeks. When she saw it, her breath caught. I opened it, revealing the silver necklace she had given me on our second anniversary, the one engraved with the date. She whispered that I had kept it. I told her I had, for tonight. I held it out to her. She stared at it like it burned and said she didn't want it back because it meant something. I agreed it did. Her hands trembled as she took the box. She said she remembered that night, how I had promised I would never give up on her. I told her I had meant it. She asked what changed. I'd learned that loving someone doesn't mean losing yourself. She cried harder, promising she would spend the rest of her life proving she could be better. I told her she hadn't proved it when it mattered. She said she had been confused. I corrected her, curious. She denied it and called herself stupid. I agreed quietly. Her knees nearly gave out, and she grabbed the edge of the couch, whispering that she hated herself. I told her that was guilt. She said she deserved it. #maybe, I replied. She looked at me through tears and asked if I felt anything at all. For a moment, memories rushed back her first apartment. Late-night pizza, her laughter in the kitchen, the way she once looked at me like I was her entire world. My chest tightened. I admitted I felt something. Hope flickered in her eyes as she asked what. Told her I felt respect for myself. The light drained from her face. She said I didn't love her anymore. I answered no, and the word felt final. She covered her mouth, shaking, and asked when it disappeared. I said it faded when I realized she didn't value it. She stepped closer, saying if she could go back, if she could undo it. I told her she couldn't, and she wouldn't. She stared at me as if seeing me clearly for the first time and whispered that I was different. I told her I was. She said she had broken me. I gently corrected her. She had revealed me. Thunder echoed outside again as she wiped her face and said, "This was goodbye." I said yes. She asked for one more chance. For a brief second I imagined saying yes, imagined holding her and trying again. But then I imagined doubting every late meeting, every message, every smile. I told her I couldn't live suspicious, and I couldn't live second. Understanding settled over her slowly. She whispered that she thought I would fight harder. I told her I had. She walked toward the door, clutching the necklace, then softly said my name before opening it. I answered. She said she really had loved me. I told her I knew, and that was what made it worse. She opened the door, and cold, rain-filled air rushed in. She stepped outside, then turned one last time and asked if I would ever think of her. I said sometimes. She asked, and then what? I answered honestly that I would remember why I left. Whatever strength she had left broke then. She nodded once and walked into the rain. I watched her disappear down the stairs before closing the door. Not fast, not angry, just firm. The storm raged outside, but inside everything was quiet. For the first time since this began, my hands weren't shaking. I didn't feel victorious. I felt steady. She hadn't lost me in a dramatic explosion. She lost me in a calm decision, and that quiet certainty was stronger than any scream. "Ryan Brooks officially resigned this morning," Marcus said, delivering it like breaking news. I leaned back in my office chair and repeated the word resigned. Marcus clarified that it was more like he had been forced out after a fraud investigation confirmed misuse of company funds. I exhaled slowly, recognizing that this wasn't temporary damage, it was permanent. Marcus added that Ryan's name was everywhere now, and no firm would touch him. I reminded him I hadn't filed anything. He told me I didn't have to. I stared at the city skyline outside my window, realizing that months ago I would have felt satisfaction, maybe even triumph. Instead, I felt distance. Marcus asked carefully about Olivia. I told him she had moved to Chicago, according to Sophia. He asked if she was keeping in touch. I said no. He asked if that bothered me. I thought about it honestly and admitted that it didn't anymore. He went quiet for a moment and then said, "I look different." I told him I felt different. He asked if I was angrier. I said no calmer. That was the truth. Later that evening, I sat across from my therapist, who asked what I felt when I thought about Olivia now. I surprised myself by saying gratitude. She raised an eyebrow and asked me to explain. I told her Olivia had shown me my limits and that I had learned I actually had them. She asked if I hated her. I said no. She asked if I forgave her. I paused and said I forgave myself for ignoring the signs. She nodded and called that growth. The word felt earned. After the session, I met my mother and Emily for dinner. Emily noticed I was smiling more, and I admitted I was sleeping more too. My mother studied me and said the storm had passed. I agreed. She asked if I missed Olivia. I admitted sometimes I did, but I didn't miss who I had been with her. Emily asked who that was. I told her I had been smaller. My mother squeezed my hand and told me I wasn't small anymore. She was right. I started working out again, took the promotion I once doubted I deserved, and I stopped checking my phone at night expecting betrayal. One Saturday afternoon, I wandered into a small bookstore downtown. Not looking for anything specific, just quiet. As I reached for a book, a soft voice beside me asked if I was about to grab it. I looked up to see her holding the same title. I told her she could take it. She suggested we could both read it instead. I laughed lightly. She introduced herself as Vanessa. I told her my name. There was something calm about her no performance, no urgency. She asked if I came there often. I said lately yes. She asked if I was escaping. I told her I was rebuilding. She studied me and said that sounded serious. I admitted it had been. She didn't push, just observed that rebuilding usually means something broke. I told her it did. She guessed my heart. I nodded. She asked if it was recent. I said months ago. She asked if I survived. I said I did. She smiled softly and said that was attractive. I raised an eyebrow and asked if survival was attractive. She said self-awareness was. We moved to the cafe corner inside the bookstore and continued talking. She told me I didn't look bitter. I admitted I had been. She asked what I was now. I said clear. She stirred her coffee and said clear men were rare. I told her I hadn't always been one. She asked what changed. I thought carefully before answering that I stopped protecting someone who didn't protect me. She held my gaze and said that sounded painful. I agreed that it was. She asked if I would do anything differently. I said no. She asked not even forgive sooner. I told her I forgave myself first. She smiled and said that was healthy. We talked for almost an hour about books, work, travel, nothing heavy, nothing forced. Before leaving, she asked if I was afraid to trust again. I said yes. She asked what that meant. I told her I would trust anyway. She nodded and called that brave. Outside, sunlight hit the pavement softly as she asked if I wanted to get coffee again sometime. I said I would like that. We exchanged numbers without rush or fantasy, just possibility. That night, I sat on the same couch where everything had once cracked. It didn't feel haunted anymore. I scrolled past old messages I had never deleted and felt no anger, no desire for revenge, only distance. I used to think I had destroyed Olivia's life. Now I understood that I hadn't destroyed her. I had simply stopped shielding her from the truth. She faced consequences. Ryan faced consequences. I faced growth. I looked around my apartment and realized it felt lighter. Not because she was gone, but because I wasn't pretending anymore. I whispered into the quiet room that she chose excitement and I chose peace. That was the difference. Months ago, I lay awake questioning my worth. Tonight I knew it. I hadn't screamed, begged, or chased. I had walked away, and sometimes walking away is the loudest victory of all. I erased her from my life the same way she erased our love, quietly, completely, without looking back.